There it is with the big blue bow. We just recently bought a brand new Ford Ranger sport truck here in the Philippines. The interesting thing is it's less expensive here versus buying the same or similar truck back in the US. Here they actually offer a diesel model with a turbo, and you can't find that back in the US. Well, I want to show you today the full experience of purchasing this truck, what it was like dealing with the dealer, the pricing, the warranties, and all the details, so you have an idea if you decide to buy a vehicle over here versus renting versus buying used. I'll give you all of those comparisons in this video today, so it should be interesting. Well, this 2-liter with turbo, right, one turbo, is a great, perfect truck for the Philippines. And let me explain why it's so perfect. First of all, the driving conditions here can be a little crazy. I don't know if you've been over here and have seen the traffic, but when you're going down the highway, you're having to constantly overtake slower vehicles. There's often what we call tuk-tuks or trikes, and you have to go around them in a short, period of time before the oncoming traffic comes. And so you're constantly overtaking vehicles here. And with the turbo, it gives you a little extra kick in, and so you quickly get around them and back into the lane. Now, the Ranger is also a really comfortable ride. And I actually, with Lynn, started off looking for the Toyota truck. And what is equivalent to like a Tacoma model back in the US is actually called the Conquest Hilux here. And it's a super durable truck, but it's tuned like a work truck here, and it basically bounced down the road. The suspension was so tight and so stiff, it made the ride uncomfortable. I mean, it's really set up as a work truck to have weight in the back. And that just wasn't going to work for me. I mean, I literally felt like I was bouncing down the road when I'm driving the truck. Whereas the Ranger is just a really comfortable ride. So you don't have any of these bouncing concerns. The suspension is fine, and you still can, put plenty of weight in the back and pull things, but you don't have the bouncing effect. Now, the other thing that's an advantage in the Ranger is that it has an updated electronics package, including a large screen that's very compatible with your phone apps. So here in the Philippines, I use Waze. It's actually better than Google Maps, and it's quite accurate. So it's really easy to find one place to the other. You just put in the name of the place you're looking for, and then it shows up on the screen here. So it's super nice. Now, the Toyota Conquest, this particular truck is on an older platform. It's still high quality, it's still very durable, but it hasn't been updated in several years. So the electronics package, the phone integration, the screen on the truck are not the same as the Ranger. So the Ranger's got just a better updated package, and that was another reason for us to go for it. Now, the interesting thing here is there is a Raptor version of the Ranger truck. I know back in the States, the Raptor version's an F-150. Well, here in Bohol, they don't sell a F-150 at the Ford dealer. In fact, they sell just a few models, and they're very different than what they are back in the States, which is kind of interesting, and they're all diesels. But because this Ranger truck is so popular here in the Philippines, you can get a Raptor version, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but basically it's about 1 million pesos more than what the Ranger Sport ended up being. And so I just didn't want to spend an additional million pesos. It's more on kind of the look and then some additional performance. Like if you're going to go off-road, I mean, it looks cool. It's super popular. The guys that have money over here, they get the Raptors. Everyone, that likes that type of a truck and can afford it, they definitely have it. But you don't really need it. Now, there's two versions of the Raptor, just in case you're interested. And the first version uses the 2.0 liter engine. But instead of having one turbo on it like the Sport does on my truck, it has two turbos. Now, there was another option, and I did look at it and did consider it for a little bit, but didn't want to spend the money. But there is a 3-liter V6, and it's gas. So you get a lot more torque and power out of that sucker. And if you want to go off-road, off to the mountains or something like that, then, that would be a pretty cool truck to have. So I like the V6. It's a full liter, larger, so it's basically a third bigger engine, right? Instead of a 2.0, it's a 3.0. All right, anyway, either way, if you go for the regular Ranger truck, which starts at the XLT as like the opening price point model, and then goes to the Sport, and then goes to the Raptor, all of them are going to include a 10-speed transmission package. I found it to be very smooth shifting and very nice, right? And I'll talk later in the video about what's the cost to run a car over here, so you can kind of use that as a comparison. And you can see the numbers for that versus buying. Of course, the amount of time that you're going to spend over here, directly weighs into that. If you're coming for a short time, just rent a car. But if you're going to be here a couple of years, you probably ought to consider buying, all right? Now, another interesting thing here in Bohol is that as far as the car dealerships that are available, we start off with the Ford and Toyota that we talked about, but the other dealerships, other brands available here is Isuzu, Suzuki. And I said, yes, Suzuki. Suzuki actually makes very small cars, this tiny little minivan and small trucks. And they're less expensive, pretty affordable, and so they're popular over here. They also have MG as a brand, which you don't see in the States. I mean, I'm talking full sedans. I remember years ago when I was in college, my brother had a MG sports car that he had fixed up and all that. But this is like, regular production models of MG sedans. They're popular over here. There's Mitsubishi, there's a Nissan dealer, and then, of course, Hyundai and Kia. Those are pretty affordable price points, and so they're here. What's not here is any of the General Motor brands, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge. Surprisingly, Honda's not here. And there's Honda dealers as far as motorcycles go all over the place. Honda and Yamaha, along with Suzuki, are the 3 top brands on motorcycles or scooters here. But there's no Honda cars, which I was really surprised by that. And again, I'm talking about Bohol. And of course, there's no luxury brands like Lexus, Acura, Infiniti. And then some additional brands are missing. There's no Mazda, which is interesting because the other brands are here that are closer to Japan except for Honda. Right? Toyota's very close. It's cheaper to get parts. It's faster to get parts. The other brands that aren't here are Subaru and then any of the European luxury brands, Audi, BMW, or Mercedes. You'd have to either go to Cebu City or Manila to pick out one of those other more luxury brands. And I did see a BMW dealership in Cebu City. I know there's a Tesla dealership in BGC. So I'm sure that they have some of those other luxury models either between Manila or Cebu City. But on Bohol and most of the other islands, they do not. But again, they have a ferry system. You could buy it in Manila or Cebu City and then put it on a ferry and then basically take it across. So you have options. All right. Anyway, moving on. Now, let's talk about the pricing. I'm sure you're interested in what the final price was. And once we negotiated it all out, it came out at 1.8 million pesos. Now, today, the exchange rate is 59. When I bought it, it was more 57-ish. So I actually had to pay $32,000 US for it. But if you were to buy the same vehicle at the same price today, it'd be $1,500 less at $30,508 at a 59 exchange rate. The exchange rate has been going up for months, and it's totally in our favor for a purchase like this. Now, the other thing is, It's a lot lower as far as the cost goes than the gas version of this type truck in the US. Again, the diesel is not available, I checked. And so I think it's probably a solid $15,000 to $20,000 less than buying a gas version of the same truck back in the US. So it really helped to have the higher exchange rate. It works in your favor, and really ended up being an advantage in order to buy this truck. But it's even more of an advantage to buy right now with the higher exchange rate. Now, this 2-liter diesel, like I said, is not available in the US, but I really like the truck, and it's really unfortunate it's not available because I think others would like it. And another reason is the gas mileage. I mean, first of all, the diesel's very quiet. It hasn't bothered me at all. And I remember years ago, my parents had a turbo diesel type car, and it was really noisy and it smoked, and so nobody liked those type of things. But the technology today, it's clean, you don't see the smoke, and it's very quiet as far as the engine goes. It's never once bothered me from the sound of the diesel, and I'm really sensitive to like if it's a noisy sound. But here's the thing, the diesel gets, in the sport truck with the turbo, 31 to 33 miles per gallon. The equivalent gas version back in the US only gets 22 to 23 miles per gallon, and that's on the EcoBoost engine. So you're getting a 40% more fuel efficiency by using the diesel, which of course lowers your cost of ownership, right? You're not paying as much for gas, while you're using it. And honestly, we only fill up like once or maybe twice a month over here. It just goes and goes and goes. And there's no freeways over here. There's just highways, and you're at varied speeds. So you're not really going that fast most of the time, and so you get great gas mileage. Now let's take a closer look at the truck itself. Okay, show us the turbo. Now when the turbo kicks in, there it goes. That's just another gear. So it's great for all the passing and everything you have to do around here. You see how it handles? It's just really smooth and comfortable. And surprisingly, the 2-liter is plenty of power. Of course, the turbo helps, but I really was concerned about that, and I took it up some hills, some steep hills, and no problem. Lots of power. And it really is an easy to drive vehicle, the way the steering is set up, and it's a really enjoyable drive. I know years ago the Rangers had like a truck type steering system, and it was actually work on the steering wheel, but that was a long time ago. This is full power steering, really easy to drive, right? Here's the final reveal at the Ford dealer, and how the purchase process is just quite different than what it is in the States. There wasn't that high pressure type thing. And they make a really big deal about the reveal part, which was fun, right? They turn it into like a bit of a celebration, so you really leave with a positive feeling. They included even a complimentary bottle of wine, and then what that umbrella is, it's a big Ford umbrella that they handed over to us. The dealer experience was quite positive. All of the interaction went very positive. They just, even negotiating was fairly easy. They didn't move a lot on the price at times, but we were able to take the process over about a week or so. And I wanted to make sure that we got the best deal possible. And so we asked for certain things, and over time we got a few more concessions, like a warranty package deal on that, and then they did the first 3 services for free as far as the maintenance goes. And in the process, we really only dealt with the salesman. And then we would make the request, and then he'd run them up the flagpole to management, and then he'd come back pretty quickly and say what they could and couldn't do. Once we've officially purchased the truck, though, then we met his boss. So it's kind of the opposite of the States. They always bring in the next guy's boss and the next guy's boss, and they're always trying to work you and all that stuff. Not the process here. It was very simple. And, part of that is they don't like conflict in their society, and so they don't use high-pressure sales tactics on you. The dealer was just more focused on, hey, we have certain promotions at different times of the year, and these are the discounts that we can offer in the pricing. And that just seems to be how things are done over here. They're more interested in you taking advantage of these like limited time promotions that run for like a month or two and then they go off, but you might get like 100,000 peso discount deal because of that, right? And we did have conversations around the warranty, and I want to make sure I was real clear about that and what the maintenance plan was, and that's kind of where we were able to negotiate. It really was more in the maintenance plan that the first 3 maintenance service intervals will be paid by the dealer. Now, the other thing that they threw in as part of their promotion, which you'd never get in the States, is free car insurance for the first 12 months. So that was a nice benefit. We can carry that afterwards. I don't know how many people actually have car insurance over here. I mean, you should do it, but locals, I'm not quite sure. I never hear it talked about. Well, anyway, at this point, we probably ought to compare a little bit more about renting versus buying. So let's kind of talk about that. In Bohol here, the average cost to rent a car is about $35 per day or so. So if we take a month of 30 days to kind of get a total cost, if you rented the car, 35 times 30 days would be $1,050. So if you want to reduce that cost a little bit, you can contact locals who are willing to actually rent out their cars, and they'll do it for a discount of about $25 a day, sometimes $30 a day. You know, of course, it depends on the vehicle, how new it is, how much mileage, but that's how you can save some money. But for example, we're just going to do a typical rental, $35 a day. So if you take the current price, the exchange rate at 59, so your price is $30,508, and you take that price and divide it by the rental cost per month at $1,050, you're going to have a 29-month break even, right? So just about 2.5 years. Now, that's assuming that you're going to stay over here for a while. If you're not going to be here for more than 3 years, then this probably doesn't make sense to you. Now, the other option is to find a used car. And of course, you can do that at a much lower price, and that might be a better situation. Just know that most car dealers over here do not sell used cars. And that's just how the market has developed here. You're going to have to go through a private party. So it's kind of hard to find who's selling a used car. You don't see them parked on the side of the road with a for sale sign on them here, right? So it's kind of a challenge. And then you don't know the quality and the condition of the vehicle. The only way that you might get lucky is if there's an expat that purchased something and then they're planning to leave, something came up, or they want to upgrade. And so what you would do is you would join the local Facebook groups that are in your local area. Like for me, I'm in several in Panglao and in Bohol. And then every once in a while, one of the expats will post something like, hey, I've got this, particular car. It's got this many kilometers on it, and I'd be willing to sell it for this price. But that's how you really find used cars here. And I'm in a lot of these expat Facebook groups, and I rarely see it. That was another reason why we went this route. We wanted a high quality vehicle, and we're planning to stay for a while. Now, here's another reason why we went with Ford. When I talked to the dealership, I said, I don't know the future. And what if I have to leave? Would you be willing to buy back the truck? Now, there wasn't a specific time period, but they basically said, yes, they would. And so if I have to leave, I don't have to sell it through a private party. I could sell it back to the Ford dealer. I'm sure it's at a discount, so I'd have to look at all that. And then what they told us is that they have a list of private parties that might be interested, and they would call them. But they don't put the truck on the lot. They just don't do that here. Now, the Toyota dealer, on the other hand, when I asked the same question, hey, what if I have to leave in 2 years? Would you buy it back? Absolutely not. So they have a different system somehow for used cars, and they didn't want to talk about it. It was interesting. Anyway, we're really happy with this truck. And back at home in California, I do have a 2018 F-150. It is a FX4, so it's the 4x4 version. And I really like the truck. It's been great, especially when I lived up in the mountains and the snow and all that. On the 4x4, you don't have to put on chains, so that was awesome. But honestly, at this point, I kind of like the Ranger better. It's still a good-sized truck, especially for over here in the Philippines. It's big enough for whatever you need, but it's easier to park. And a lot of the parking conditions are really tight over here, especially in like the parking lots at the mall, like the ICM Mall. The spots are really tight. So it's nice to have a little bit of a smaller vehicle. It's not like the parking lots back in the States. And of course, if you're trying to park in one of the cities here, in anywhere in the Manila area or Cebu City, parking is always a challenge. So the smaller the vehicle, the better. Now, one thing that I really debated upon was, do I really need 4x4, or can I get the gas mileage savings of 4x2? And I feel like for the most part, 4x2 is going to be great, because on Bohol, unless you live up in the mountains where it rains more or something like that, and you just live in a place where you're constantly, off the paved road, you just don't need it. Now, on the other hand, if I lived in a place like Mindanao, where they've got lots of mountains, lots of rain, and lots of landslides, I definitely would get a 4x4 as the option. We even saw over there when we were in Bukidnon Mountains in August, we saw a Toyota 4x4. This guy thought he could go through anything and get stuck in the mud and had to be towed back out. So it was pretty messy because it had been raining and he went off-road. Whereas where we live here in Panglao, Bohol, you don't need a 4x4. You're just not going to use it. So I decided not to go that route. Anyway, I feel that this truck is great for if you're an expat, if you're a local, if you've got a family, you can comfortably fit 5 people in it. Basically 2 in the front, the 2 bucket seats, and then it's got a bench seat in the back. So it works great for families. And then having the bed in the back, we were able to move a friend's bathtub from the hardware store to their home up an hour away up in Butuan. And so it was great just to throw the bathtub in the back and off we go. And then when we moved from the previous place we lived at Portofino Residence, we just loaded up the back of the truck twice and our move was done. Suitcases, everything that we needed, pots and pans. Really easy. Anyway, that's why we chose what we chose. There's other options, of course, and budgets are important. So I'm curious what you think. Would you buy a truck like this if you were living in the Philippines for 3 years or more? I mean, obviously you have to plan to stay here to really buy, unless the dealer's willing to buy it back. And again, I haven't been through that experience yet. They just said that they would. So we'll see how that works out. But I'm curious what you would do. So let me know whether you'd buy this truck if you lived here in the Philippines. Let's just say for 3 years or more. And let me know in the comments section anything else that you'd like to comment about the video. I always love to hear from you. And it's a great part of this media is that I can interact directly with you. If you've got a question or a comment, I can respond, and I try to respond to everybody. Okay, that's going to do it for this video. I thought you'd be interested in some of the details of the truck. I hope you enjoyed it. You got any questions or comments, let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.